This website is fantastic. It gives the opportunity for the kids to explore the museum at their own pace. If we go there on excursion, which is fantastic, it's normally a dedicated path. This one they get free rein and explore anything they want, and it gives them the opportunity to have that aha moment and discovery on their own.
So we've been using the website to research many different parts of history and how they helped Australia to be what it is today. Using a textbook, it's not for all people. Not everyone enjoys reading and memorizing certain words or phrases. An interactive game could help make it more interesting and motivate people to learn more about the topic. Our teacher was very excited about it and allowed us to have a free roam on the websites to see which parts we were interested in and where we'd like to learn more and investigate further into.
I would 100% encourage these kids to use this website for their assignments. It's a fantastic resource, great references for them to use in their essays. It's fantastic.
We can use it as research for our assignments and use the information that they've given us in order to complete our work.
When I'm using the website, I find it a lot easier and a bit more free range. I can make my own way through the website at my own pace, and it gives me a bit more, choice in what I can do. I like the 3D images just because of that, being able to view them from all different angles, and that's something that you can't really do in the museum. Say they're against the wall or something, you can't see the backside of an object, or if they're laying down flat. It lets you to see all aspects of it, which I find something that you can only get digitally. I've actually learned I read a bit about the Bondi Beach and how the surf lifesavers started there, and then they've saved around 600,000 lives, which I find amazing. I've also read a lot about the gold rush, and I find it quite interesting that the number of people that came in from all over the world, and it's a big reason that Australia is a multicultural community today.
This can be used to help you easily get information about the whole of Australian history, since there's a timeline which you can easily scroll through and see the defining moments of Australian history, and it's quite simple just to figure out a lot and learn a lot from it just by looking through.
First off, it's free. Anyone can access it, so you don't have to worry about excursion notes or anything like that. It's super simple, user-friendly, and has a mountain's worth of information that we can use, not just from Year 7 to Year 8, but primary school teachers can utilise it very well as well.
Great. Good morning. It's exciting, isn't it, seeing that? A terrific piece of work, and you learn more about that in the course of this morning, we hope, and then have a chance to investigate it online when you're home or back at work later today. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you all this morning from the Gandel atrium. Welcome to those of you who are here in the room, great friends. It's nice to see some familiar faces again in what has been the most remarkable year. And also for all of those that are joining us online as we officially launch, turn the buttons on or whatever you have to do for websites like these, our Australia's Defining Moments digital classroom. In particular, I want to welcome our very special guests, John and Pauline Gandel, who are joining us online from Melbourne. John and Pauline, we're very sorry that you can't be here with us today in the wonderful atrium of the museum that bears your name. I have to say, it looks wonderful today, almost as good as it looked on Saturday night when it was the venue for the ABC TV's broadcast of the election results in the ACT. So great to think that moment, another one of the great moments in our democracy when we elect our government, here locally, at least in the ACT. In this particular case, it's great to think that broadcast came to people watching at home from the Gandel atrium. So welcome and thank you again for joining us. We're very pleased to have here, though, a representative of the family and a great lover of the museum, and also someone who shares our great love for the automotive history of Nation as well. Stephen Gandel is sitting in the front row, grandson of John and Pauline, and who was here when we did announce this project a couple of years ago. It's great to have you here, Stephen, with us again, and also to be cooking up a few plans about things that we might be able to do with their great collection of Holdens in the future. So more of that perhaps later. Thanks also to Tony Nutt, a member of our council who joins us today, a great contributor to the life of this place. Tony, it's very kind of you to make yourself available today for this event and to be here. We appreciate that, as always. And of course, our Chair of Council, David Jones, a great leader of this institution, is joining us online as well, who couldn't be here today. David, great to have you with us, and thanks again for your leadership, your support, and your advice always as we look to steer the museum through all that's ahead. To Vedran Drakulic as well, the CEO of Gandel Philanthropy. Welcome, Vedran. I think back to that time, some years ago, when you and I and Annalisa met and discussed the prospect of this project, and to think that we're here now is a very great thing, and it's in no small measure due to you. So thank you. That's a long preamble to say, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Matt Trinker, and I'm the director of the museum. Really, I must work harder on my personal introductions. Think about doing it at the start of all of this rather than at the end. I'm delighted that you're able to join us for this event this morning. And as always, in this museum, we begin by remembering, by remarking upon, by paying homage, really, to the first peoples of this place. And there's no better person than Paul House, an elder of the peoples of this place, to be with us today and to be available to welcome us to this place, a place that has a lot of personal meaning to him, as well as a lot of collective and social meaning in terms of his place in the place of the first peoples of Canberra. So Paul, please.
Wurugawuri, thank you, Matthew. And Jumburo Buro Marambang, good morning. Maranya, everyone. Baladu Yaba, Nyambri, Wogalu, Wallablaw, Nunawa, Nyang. I'm speaking Nyambri Wogalu, Nunawa Wallabla language. And Nyari, Marambang, Bulu Ningi, Nuna Buru. It's good to see you all here today. Yilangalangbo, Gibabango Wogabo Megabo, Diradilbang Maranya, ladies and gentlemen, young men, young women, distinguished guests, the Gandel family, Nyari and Jamali, Nyambri, Gamal, Wogalu, Wallabala, Nunawa, Mujigang, Yanang Bujayandu. My respects to Nyambri, Gamal, Wogalu, Wallabala, Nunawa elders past and present, Nyari and Jamarabu, Mujigango, Nurambanjigubu, Ninyi Yiridu. My respects to all people and all elders from all parts of the country. Nyambri, Nunawa, Going Banya, Ninyoga, Nurambango Dara, Nyambri, Nunawa, people welcome you all to country. Yinjamara, Yinjamalgiri, respectful. It's a philosophy, it's an ideology. Mambawara, Naminyagu, Wujigabinya, Wudadaragu, Winingala Gubaligu, looking to see, listening to hear, and learning to understand. Yinjamara, Magagiri Biringa, Bogongu Dirinda, Nyambinu Dara. Respect is in the journey of the Bogong moss in the mountains. Yinjamara, Balabida, Da Binabida Wurrawin, Nyambinu Dara. Respect is in the rivers, quietly moving through Nyambinu country. Yinjamara, Balawalamwanga Dabu, Mudan Madan Dabu, Banmunyu, Gurungambira. Respect is in the grinding stones and the carved trees made long ago on Yambi Nunavut country. Muran Waginya, Yinjamara, Wirinbira Dara. A respectful way of life cares for country. Yinjamara Wurimbira Marandogobo, Giyiragobo, Yandogobo. Respect is for the now, the past, the present, and the future. This welcome to country is made in the spirit of peace and a desire for harmony for all peoples of the modern ACT and surround. And our main aim as local custodians is to establish an atmosphere of mutual respect through the acknowledgement of our ancestors and the recognition of our rights to declare our special place in the pre and post contact of the region. We've cared for Mother Earth since the dawn of time, and evidence of our sovereignty, our ownership, can be seen right throughout the land. I was born here at the centre of my ancestral country at the Old Canberra Hospital. We all have an identity and a belonging, and this is part of mine and it's part of yours as well. We've cared for Mother Earth since the dawn of time, and our signature is in the land, not just our DNA. And taking care of country is important to us. Our people who, through law and custom, still continue to maintain our connection in a contemporary society, to look after our culture and heritage and our ancestral lands and waters, very important to us all. We must remember under the concrete and the steel and the glass of our cities and in country towns there's a rich, powerful, compelling First Nation story, which is now a shared story that belongs to all of us. And we all have a responsibility in looking after country and the waters. The more we look after the land and the waters, the more Najang Dara looks after us, the land and the waters look after us. So in conclusion, I talk about the law of the land, talks about giving respect and honour to all people in all parts of the country, being patient, being polite, being gentle, then people will respect you. Hold fast to each other, empower each other. In conclusion, I say, Yinjamara, Maramara, Nya Nyinya Girama Maranya. Respect shapes us and lifts up the people. In the spirit of reconciliation, I say, Gurabari, welcome, and Wurrugawurri, thank you.
You know, every time that I listen to Paul House, I feel that I'm reminded about something else that's important in the way that we conceive of honouring the First Peoples of this place. I'm reminded of the way that in remembering the First Peoples, we're actually remembering ourselves as well, because there's something quite affecting about the idea of this long chain of human history. For all the challenges in the Australian past, isn't it astonishing to think that human beings have been on this continent for 65,000 years? And it's no accident that the defining moments timeline that you saw above begins with a moment, notionally, not quite a moment, but certainly important, of the knowledge we have of the First Peoples of this place. That at this, what we understand today is at least 65,000 years ago, there have been human beings making their lives on this continent. And I find that very affecting. It's one of the things that I think is a great strength for all of us if we just look at it the right way and return the embrace, the welcome, the opportunity that's embodied in Paul's words today. If we return that, if we open ourselves to it, then there's much less contest in the Australian past and much more opportunity, it seems to me, in thinking about how we both renegotiate the terms of our past and our understanding of the past, but in ways that are productive for us in the future, and we grow, we enlarge ourselves as a people when we do that. So thank you, Paul, for reminding us anew of that strength. I mean, the other incredible part of the story, and I would say this, wouldn't I? Most people know my heritage, is to think about the great foundations that we have in this country that have come from the largely British institutions that have been the rocks upon which the modern Australian nation has been founded. And then, of course, the stories of all who've come after as well, the stories of my forebears, my Italian family on both sides, and so many of us here today have stories like that. What an incredible span, really, to think of all those peoples coming together in a place called Australia today. And of course, this museum, the National Museum, is where that rich story of our nation comes alive. And we've got a great sense, I hope all of you know this, look at familiar faces out here, but we've got a great sense of commitment to that story. We intend to be the place always that you think of when you think about wanting to know something about the story of this nation. And the staff here who are assembled today, I know feel this themselves, they feel it as a personal mission, but we think it very much collectively within the organisation as well. This is where the story of this nation resides, in the things that have been collected together over many years that are evidence of lives past and present, and which give us a sense sometimes, more viscerally than cognitively. We feel the past when we see objects that are on display in the museum. They're explained to us in ways that make that story come alive much more than if we were reading it perhaps in a book. But this great story is work that I'm convinced we can only do with others. And as I look around this room, I see partners of ours in many different respects over many years. And of course, online, in John and Pauline, we have great partners, and indeed Vedran as well, partners who've made this project possible. So today is about celebrating the power of partnership, the idea that museums like this, and indeed other national institutions, gain so much by working with others. Not just the material support, not just the financial support that can underwrite the costs of these projects. That's important, let's make no mistake, and we're very grateful to John and Pauline for that support. But it's also been the journey we've been on together, what we've learned from you, the sorts of encouragement you gave us, and the reframing of our ambition with your great desire to communicate the story of this nation to the next generation, melding with ours and our sense of commitment to that job. And I hope today, as we celebrate this moment, we also see the value in these partnerships, both in material terms, but also for what they do for us as an institution. They make us bigger, they give us a better sense of all that we must do in the future. I think this digital resource is really going to transform the teaching of Australian history in schools. As I've said, it ranges over a vast extent temporally and geographically across the nation to make sense of what it means to live in the country today. And it makes history not just something you should learn, but that's fun to learn, that's engaging and delightful, and in which you can insinuate your own story, that you can see yourself in this grand passage of times past. And some of the moments that are in this suite of content that's been essentially launched today, and which we'll continue to add to over time, include events that dot that record. Evidence of the first peoples on the continent, Ned Kelly's last stand, the first gay Mardi Gras in Sydney, Kathy Freeman's historic win at the Sydney Olympics, and of course events that make us reflect on loss in this country too, the Black Saturday bushfires not so long ago. And it's, I think, important for us to remember these moments when Australians really have stood up and bravely contended with circumstances that have provided great challenge to them, as they have this year, and think about even the times that we're living through now being moments that indeed we may be committing to this site, this online resource in the near future. It is remarkable indeed to be living in times like these. And in saying that, I do spare a thought for our guests in Melbourne and remind them that our thoughts are with them as they continue to work through the issues before us. I do want to thank, in particular, also when I talk about partners, the National Film and Sound Archive, that's allowed us access to their vast resources that document the Australian past, and have enabled us to include 50 videos from their great collection within this work. It makes it truly a partnership indeed when you consider that that content now is going to be at the very core of the Australia's Defining Moments digital classroom. And while I know that John and Pauline would have loved to be with us here today, we have the next best thing. Grandson Stephen Gandel, who's come down from Sydney, to be with us this morning. We had to find Stephen an office because so dutiful and committed he is to his own work that he needed to be working today as well as dashing out here to make this speech. Please make Stephen Gandel welcome as he comes to the podium now. Thank you.
Mr Paul House, Ngambri Ngunnawal custodian and member of the National Museum's Indigenous Reference Group. Mr David Jones, Chair of the National Museum of Australia, who is with us online. Dr Matthew Trenker AM, Director of the National Museum of Australia. My grandparents, John and Pauline Gandel AC, who are with us online. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Paul, for your wonderful welcome to country. I wish to start by also acknowledging the traditional custodians on the lands in which we gather, the Ngunnawal, Ngunnawal, Ngambri people. I wish to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, including those here with us today, and to all their future leaders. My name is Stephen Gandel, and I'm here representing my grandparents, John and Pauline Gandel. I know that they would have been more than keen to be here in person, as this program is one that they've been very passionate about. But, as we all know, Melbourne is in lockdown, and as myself, my wife and children are the only Sydney-based Gandels, it's an honour and a privilege to be representing both our family and Gandel Philanthropy today. My grandparents know all too well the importance of education and the importance of helping our younger generations achieve their full potential. As such, engaging in and supporting this program was very much in their wheelhouse. Just as the media release says about Australia's Defining Moments Digital Classroom Initiative, this project is indeed a game changer. It will bring the Defining Moments program to children in every classroom of Australia without having them travel to Canberra to experience it. It will offer informative and educational stories and a bit of fun too for teachers and students in a way they understand best, digitally. They will be able to access games, videos, virtual tours, 3D scans and much more through a range of platforms including interactive smartboards, handheld devices and computers. For this, the digital generation, this program is truly meeting them on their terms, as it were. The program, I feel, also indicates the way that classrooms of tomorrow are likely to operate, by being more and more, if not completely, online and digitally based. COVID has thrown up numerous and serious challenges for our whole planet, and Australia is no different. But if the crisis has also offered many opportunities, one of which has been the ability to understand how we can communicate and learn more remotely, online and in virtual mode. So having this program, the Digital Classroom Program, launched and available for schools around Australia is very timely. And we hope that the schools will take the greatest possible advantage of that. Way back when this partnership between Gandel Philanthropy and the National Museum of Australia was announced, my grandparents said that this project ticked a number of boxes. They exalted the fact that this will be a dynamic digital history resource aligned to the national curriculum. They also added that the Digital Classroom Initiative will have a strong, positive and lasting impact on the lives of Australian students. In fact, let me quote directly what they said at the time. To us, learning is one of the driving forces, and we know only too well that education opens up opportunities. As importantly, knowing, understanding and investigating the history of our nation will help our future generations feel connected to their country, and we hope to encourage them to be part of the future defining moments in our nation. I think this sums up very nicely why the Gandel family got involved with this transformational project. I would like to conclude by thanking all the people that were involved in developing the Defining Moments digital classroom, from senior staff and management of the NMA, to all the other contributors, the steering committee, to all the other designers and tech people, but above all, the schools and teachers that helped review and improve the online content. You all deserve a round of applause. On behalf of Mr. John Gandel, AC, and Mrs. Pauline Gandel, AC, the trustees of Gandel Philanthropy, and the whole Gandel family, I wish you the greatest of success with the rollout of this program. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. It's special to have you here today, given that you were here a couple of years ago when we did announce this project. But I'm minded of the sort of the foundations of this idea about taking the Defining Moments projects into classrooms. And it really began when John and Pauline Gandel were visiting the museum and talking to us about our work. And we showed, I think, both of them the digital wall that's here on the other side of this column in the atrium. And they were both really taken with it. It's a great piece, a great installation relating aspects of the Defining Moments of Nation, content that is also online. And we started talking about, wouldn't it be great if we could take that into schools, put that on the wall or the blackboard, or not too many blackboards these days, whiteboards of schools. And it really started there. From little things, big things really do grow. And indeed, it shows how these partnerships, these exercises are not just about the exercises of philanthropy in some dry way. They're about coming together and thinking through new ideas that are going to mean something we think important signal in the nation's history, and certainly the teaching of it. 3 years ago, the person who was charged with bringing this work to fruition, and in truth who supplied the greater part of its creative vision, David Arnold, 3 years ago, I think he didn't quite understand the journey that he embarked on, and then 2 years ago when this began in earnest, and now only perhaps he understands the full extent of everything that the labours past him perhaps that have been necessary to bring this project to fruition. I'm very pleased to be able to take this opportunity to thank him and his dedicated team, some great people here in the room with us who've done a lot for this project, contributed much to it. But I do thank David for his work and his vision and his commitment to this and all the other things he's done in the museum through the course of a very long career. And it's my great pleasure to be able to invite him to the stage to say a few words now. David.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here, and it is it's a lovely moment after 3 years, Matt. It's a lovely moment. Like all of you here, since I can remember, I've always loved history. As a young history teacher, way back in the 1980s, I had a couple of really strong preoccupations. I had a number of other preoccupations, but I had two of these. The first was to find the best primary and secondary sources for my students that I could lay my hands on, and then help with my best friend, the photocopying machine, which I think is the best friend of many teachers over the years, to serve these up to my students to feast on. The second was to agonize forever, and I really did agonize over this, how to engage and enthuse students in my classes. What methods could I employ to make them interested and to get the best out of them? And these, of course, included things like games, debates, drama, quizzes, inquiry learning units of work, films, and towards the end of the 1980s and into the early 1990s, those first computer games and tools. If you fast forward to now, what is so satisfying about helping to bring Australia's Defining Moments digital classroom to fruition is that it brought those two preoccupations of mine together in a really powerful way. A project of substantial and important content with many, many primary and secondary sources, and a website that uses content in a really rich, wide variety of ways through, as we've already heard, games, quizzes, and other interactive devices. But there's one other element that I really want to point out to you, and that actually excited me 3 years ago when we first thought about this project, and that is actually a great credit to the director of the National Museum and the museum more broadly, and that is the concept of defining moments itself. Because what defining moments does is it creates what I call, and a lot of people would call, a provocation. So it asks students to consider, are these moments, the ones that Matt mentioned earlier and the other 115 or so moments that we have on the website, are they really defining moments? What makes them defining moments? Do you agree? Do you want to challenge that idea? And so on. So in creating this provocation, we're encouraging students to research, to discuss, to debate all those active learning processes. And what I hope for this website, and what I hope for all really great websites, is that they don't stay with eyes glued to the screen. They actually generate discussion in the classroom. They generate debate in the classroom. Students, in a sense, turn off the computer and turn into their discussions. And I think that that's a great hope that I have for this website. So my hope ultimately for the website is that it will do a lot more than provide correct answers to homework questions of historical events, although I might say that that's not a bad thing. But in the hands of skilled and enthusiastic history and humanities teachers, it becomes a tool for real inquiry, spirited investigation, discussion, and debate. Now, I know that Matt's already thanked a few people, and I'm very bad at cracking up under these circumstances, so I'm going to try and keep my emotions in check. But I do want to say a few special thank yous. First to John and Pauline Gandel. It's because of you two that I'm here today. And it's given such a rare opportunity, I think, for the museum and for Australia, really, to enjoy the depth of something like this. So really thank you so much for your wonderful, wonderful gift to us. I'd like to thank the Defining Moments Steering Committee. I notice Merrill's here in the audience. There's Bruce here somewhere. And I know Vedran and Kate are online. They've been wonderful throughout, given us great support, encouraged us, given us new ideas when we needed them, all of those things. Thank you so much for your fantastic support. And of course to Bruce for the Australian Journey video series, which gets another life on this website, which is wonderful. I want to thank Chris, Mel, and the team down at Bliss Media. They've done a fantastic job on this site, been on the journey with us for over a year now. And I think they might agree that this sometimes rather challenging project has also been a very enlarging project. To Tim and Kat at Rybuck Media, not enough can be said about the quality of their work. They're amazing educators and creatives. The family and community games on the website, which I hope you can all enjoy later on, lie at the heart of this website, as does the virtual museum of the Landmarks Gallery. To Bob Lewis of Eagle Resources, a true colossus of school education writing. Thank you, Bob, over so many years. Your work is alive and well on this site. To Ben and Nick Adney, who I know Nick, I'm hoping Nick is watching. Ben is actually teaching in the classroom at the moment. They've provided some wonderful resources for this site. And finally to Jonathan Barrett, or JB, as we affectionately called him here, and Eamon McNamara, there they are at the back, who were the team of 2019. Thank you for your wonderful efforts. And the team of 2020 are incomparable. Eleanor Hilton and Jane Regan. Thank you so much, guys. Amazing people. And now, collecting myself, it's my job now to introduce a short Zoom video of Ben Lawless. Ben's a teacher at Aitken College in Melbourne. I mentioned him a few moments ago. Sadly, Ben, as I mentioned, can't join us today on Zoom Live. He's actually in the classroom, as he should be. But he has recorded some words for us to hear now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ben Lawless. I'm a history teacher from Victoria, and I was lucky enough to create some material for the new Defining Moments digital classroom project. The fantastic David Arnold, who is a big part of the project, I met him down in Melbourne when I was giving a presentation about learning adventures, a narrative-based history teaching learning activity that I've developed. He liked what he saw, and so he commissioned me to produce the Spirit Stone Saga, which is, if you remember back to your childhood when you used to play Pick a Path or fighting fantasy books, where you are the main character in the book and you make choices and you go about your business and you try to win the narrative that way. So I've made one of them for Year 5, that's colonial history, and in that students have to they make choices about what they want to learn about next, and then they do historical thinking activities to develop their skills as well. There's also a second one that I've written that will be coming soon for World War I. It's called War Correspondence. But more generally, what's so impressive about this project is that it's extremely visual. So, these days, kids spend a couple of hours on YouTube at least. And so if the learning material that you're putting in front of them isn't really, really visual, then they're not going to be that engaged. Also, what's fantastic for teachers is that right on the homepage, if you click on learning resources, you've got a whole heap of different things that teachers can do. And what's exciting is that it's not whole big chunks of text. You've got games, images, learning modules. Of course, you've got the virtual museum, quizzes, and videos. So all really, really tech-savvy, future-focused learning materials there, which is so fantastic. I've just recently been writing a history textbook, and I've referenced a lot of the material that's going to be in this virtual museum. So it's really, really exciting. I'm so proud to be a part of it. So check out Spirit Stone Saga and check out World War I War Correspondence when that comes out. But in general, have a look around that site because there's just so much potential there. There's lesson plans already laid out for teachers to use and a whole heap of multimedia stuff which you can insert into any lesson and make it super engaging. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you all soon on the Defining Moments digital classroom. Bye.
You can't beat passionate teachers, can you? Thank God, God for them, really. Especially when I think about my own children and how, with all of us, with our children, we really hand them over to teachers in classrooms to hope that they might be enthralled about learning things that we think are important to them, and in this case, learning something about our history, our collective history, the story of this nation. So thanks, Ben. Thanks, David. A lot of people might not realise that this project marks a particular moment in Dave's career. He's retiring in a few short weeks, although I can't quite believe we won't see him much in the future. I think he'll be back in some guise. But it is the close of a remarkable period of work here at this museum. And before David, I know more than 20 years here, and it's a very great contribution indeed you've made to this place. And certainly now, I hope a project that you feel is a culmination of all your ambition here at the museum in the time that you've been here. I'm trying to say something now that I'm cautious about saying for the sake of not wanting to look smug. But how good are we at picking the right moment for a project that the country really needs at this time? No one would have wished to have seen what we've seen unfold across the country over the course, and indeed around the world in the course of the last 8 or 9 months. And certainly it wasn't in our thinking when we began this project. We just knew that the digital environment was going to be important for the teaching of Australian history. But as it's turned out, it's remarkable, isn't it? You know, we now are launching this project precisely at the right time, when I think it's most needed, when we know that around the country, not just teachers, but parents at various times have been struggling to think about how they might communicate to their students wherever they were, whether they were at school or indeed at home, in the midst of all the challenge this year has presented. So sometimes in life, in the midst of moments, exigent moments, moments of crisis, things come forward and suit the times, and this certainly suits these times. I'm particularly pleased to think that at this juncture, going into the next school year, we'll be able to support teachers in classrooms and indeed wherever they may be next year with a resource of this kind. It's also the case that these things happen through the work, through the efforts of many people. And to say that this team has been led so ably by Dave is to also implicitly call to mind all the other people right across this great museum who've lent a hand in this project. And there are many of them in the room here today. And in fact, we thought that a simpler way, rather than me reading a roll call of those names, was to actually play them as I finish the proceedings this morning. And I'd ask you just to mark those people who've contributed to this project coming to fruition. I do want to single out, though, as well, the head of development, Annalisa Miller, for the work she's done over many years in brokering this relationship, in working so actively with Gandel Philanthropy and with John and Pauline, and in all that she's done, really, in the work to develop the capacity this museum has to reach out and form partnerships of this kind in our mutual interest. So well done to Annalisa and her team, who've been exceptional through the course of this project, as indeed all the people at the museum who've contributed to this, and you'll see in a moment. Technical glitches aside, Jeremy, otherwise someone might have to hand the paper to me and I'll read them. I'm told it's coming, and this is the equivalent of a studio manager's suggestion to fill until the video begins. There it is. I'm now going to draw out the conclusion of this event to give you enough time to read these names. And perhaps without reading them out myself, just say thanks again to everybody involved in this project. You know, I'm fond of saying, but only because it's true, that this museum is very fortunate to have the best staff of any of the national collecting institutions in this country. Pache, our colleagues, if any are in the room, from any of those other organisations, great organisations. Everyone who works in the collecting institutions is a great team player, but I am exceptionally proud of the staff we have here, and indeed the capacity to join with people outside the museum to create a project like this. And finally, you'll be pleased to hear, thanks to all of you. You know, if you talk about needing friends to get things done, it's never been more true than it has been in the last year. And as well as John and Pauline, there are other friends here today and online that I want to note and to say thanks for what you do to support this institution. It's a pleasure, isn't it, to come out and actually have an event like this, as socially distanced as you are in this room. And I hope you've enjoyed the proceedings today. I thank you again for your attendance and wish you very well, and of course the project very well in the future. Thank you.